Welcome to Good for Bitcoin, a weekly show recorded live every Friday where we recap the top events of the week and talk about everything that is good for Bitcoin. If it's built on Bitcoin, then it's good for Bitcoin. Let's get started.
Content shared on this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute financial, investment, or legal advice. The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guests and do not reflect the official policy or position of any other agency, organization, or company. We encourage you to conduct your own research and consult with a qualified professional before making any financial decisions.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Good for Bitcoin. It's been another very busy week in Bitcoin and crypto. We're going to get to the bottom of everything. But welcome. Thank you for tuning in. Happy Friday. Happy Friday, Kate.
Happy Friday. How are we doing today?
Good. I feel like this week kind of flew by. It's already Friday. I feel like it was just Monday, but that's just because so much stuff happened this week. So we got a lot to talk about.
Well, let's get into it.
Yeah. Lots of strategy news. Of course, we always got to start off with the public company stuff. Strategy. First, they acquired 397 BTC. So they now hold 641,205 Bitcoin.
Do you want to get into the stretch, the STRC, and what this means for them?
Yeah. So a few more strategy things. So first, their STRC, which I think is pronounced stretch, that surpassed $100 per share. And basically what that allows Strategy and Sailor to do is activate this ATM offering where they can issue and sell additional shares. Anytime that STRC is above $100, they have the ability to do this. So they can do this ATM offering, they can issue additional shares, which basically allows them to raise more capital that will be used to acquire more Bitcoin. So basically the goal is to keep it at $100 per share. It just surpassed that the other day for the first time. So now it's sort of like icing on the cake, and they can just continue to scrape that off and use that to buy Bitcoin. And I think I remember originally when this was announced that Sailor actually used ChatGPT, or at least some AI, to think up this strategy for acquiring more Bitcoin. It's
that makes sense.
It's also I think it pays a 10% dividend or something for owning it. So that's the reason why you would want to buy it, is 10% yield basically.
That's funny. Yeah, remember when we were in Vegas and he basically had a whole speech about AI and how blown away he was that he's I don't go to my lawyers, I just go to ChatGPT before I go to my lawyers.
That's when we were disillusioned by Sailor being on stage and basically talking about his 10 commandments for AI and all the Bitcoin disciples watching him. It was a little weird.
It's funny. I was I haven't eaten lunch. I'm gonna go for a walk.
Yeah. So STRC, they surpassed that $100 threshold, which everyone was really excited about because that means that they're going to be ramping up to buy a lot more Bitcoin. They also have begun offering a new one, which is STRE, which they say is pronounced stream, as their first ever euro denominated perpetual preferred stock. So now that something like this is available in European markets as well, very similar to STRC. So it's a 10% dividend stock currently, or at release or whatever, it's going to be offered at 80 euros per share. This morning, actually, they announced that they were upsizing the deal from 350 million to 620 million euros, which basically means that we have a $700 million BTC buy looming as soon as it hits whatever. I don't know if it's 100 euros is what they're targeting or not, but a big BTC buy incoming from MicroStrategy in the future.
Awesome. Then we have Strive. It's now also offering SATA, SATA ticker. It's a new perpetual preferred stock via IPO to select investors. And the SATA stock will accumulate cumulative dividends at a variable rate per annum on the stated amount of $100 per share. And the initial monthly regular dividend rate per annum is 12%.
Yeah, so very, very similar basically to what Strategy's been doing with they have more than two also. There's like STRC and like STRX. Yeah, they have like multiple ones. So yeah, so Strive is now basically just copying the Strategy playbook and trying to offer their own. But 12% is pretty good yield.
It's juicy.
We talk a lot in this section about companies buying Bitcoin, but we actually have a company selling Bitcoin this week. French chipmaker Sequans, they sold 970 BTC, worth about $100 million to pay down some debt. But they still hold 2,264 BTC. And their CEO, George Karam, said, "Our Bitcoin treasury strategy and our deep conviction in Bitcoin remain unchanged." I guess they couldn't find any other way to pay down their debt and they had to sell some Bitcoin, but doesn't mean that they're going to be dumping the rest.
Yeah, makes sense.
Hopefully.
It seems like institutions aren't able to take loans against their BTC yet. I guess with JP Morgan, they can. True. But yeah, interesting. All right. And then we have MetaPlanet. They're using $100 million of their credit facility to buy more BTC.
Bitcoin on leverage. What can go wrong?
I've never heard of a bad thing.
We also have a Future, which we don't talk about too much, but that's Adam Back's treasury company, raised $35 million to buy more BTC. So all these BTC buys are coming soon, I guess, that are going to just save us from this downward market that we're in right now.
Then we also have the Trump family with American Bitcoin. They have acquired 139 BTC, which brings their total to 4,004.
So Tycho has been named head of Bitcoin strategy at Treasury. Very cool stuff. So Tycho will drive Bitcoin strategy and shape how they read the markets, which is very cool. Obviously, having somebody so close to our ecosystem, so close to Stacks, obviously, with Zest, etc. Very cool to have somebody on the inside there. And I was seeing some speculation about why this announcement doesn't very specifically mention Stacks. And I think for anybody that's especially for somebody like Tycho now, he's part of this big entity. It's risky basically. They can't just immediately deploy Bitcoin into DeFi. There's so much risk, there's so much regulation, there's so much red tape when it comes to what you can do with these treasury companies still. And that includes even saying what I'm saying, that you can't do these things yet because of regulation and red tape and stuff like that. So yes, Stacks wasn't named in here, but I mean, I would bet that Tycho is looking for any opportunity to make that happen in some way. It's just not yet possible. So I saw people speculating on that or confused why Stacks wasn't named. So I thought it would be safe enough for me to at least say something about it, but Tycho probably couldn't say that.
Yeah, totally. No, I think it's good that you say that because sometimes you're just you see people in positions of not power, but opportunity, and you're why can't you? But there's a lot of things that are just not cleared for institutions to do yet. And I imagine the moment that they can start earning more yield, they will be more than happy to do so. But, some framework needs to be laid out before that.
100%.
And then we had Bloomberg. They're reporting that Kazakhstan will launch a $1 billion crypto reserve fund using seized assets by 2026.
Pretty crazy. I didn't know that they had that much seized assets, but there is a lot of Bitcoin mining operations there. There have been in the past, at least.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of Bitcoin.
A lot of Bitcoin.
Okay. Getting into just more industry news. This one is pretty cool. I think we talked about this maybe last week or the week before, that I know Fidelity has been working on this, but they officially now have launched it. So Fidelity has enabled crypto deposits and withdrawals for retail investors. So if you have a Fidelity account, you can also sign up for a Fidelity crypto account, and you could have, bought Bitcoin on there and bought Ethereum on there. And there's a few others, I think, they sell Litecoin and stuff like that. But now you can actually deposit and withdraw from your own hot wallets or cold storage, which is very, very cool. So Alex Thorne from Galaxy, he shared kind of the process of withdrawing. He provided a few screenshots in the tweet if you want to pull that up. But
absolutely.
Basically so the process is you add a new crypto address and it takes a couple days. There's like a 3-day wait list to like add a new address to like a whitelist. But after that, it's on there and you can pretty much freely deposit or withdraw to that address. Sorry, I hit a button on my screen. And basically he said like once it was added, he was able to just like submit a withdrawal, and like next block it submitted and was there. So it seems like it's very efficient. I mean, Fidelity does custody really well, so I wouldn't have expected anything less, but really cool. And yeah, it just goes into like what I was talking about last week with like, I don't know, if you're in the US, like this is a pretty cool long-term option if you just want to like hold Bitcoin and not deploy it in anything. It's really cool for adoption, and having the ability to then withdraw it to your own wallet to deploy it or do other things is really, really neat.
Yeah, I feel like it's also a great onboarding tool to people who are new to Bitcoin. Like imagine just being able to say like, I'll just use Fidelity, and like everything that you could want to do as a Bitcoin holder, you can just do there.
Yeah, I've like had conversations like with my father-in-law about like, I was out talking to him about Bitcoin and like, where do you buy it and stuff. And like, I was gonna like trying to like recommend River, but it's just, it's like it's just a different platform right now to be able to be like, oh, just do it through Fidelity, which I know he has a Fidelity account. So again, it just makes it, like you said, it's easy and simple, and like people are already there. Like people already have Fidelity accounts in the US. So
totally
really easy to buy Bitcoin now. And then later on, you can self-custody it if you want to. So really, really cool.
Well, speaking of River.
Yeah, speaking of River, I saw this week they added direct deposit support, which I'm a super big fan of. This is something, can't remember if we talked about it on the show. This was like a while ago now. I used to do this through Coinbase.
Yep.
And basically you would be able to give like your employer a direct deposit, like account number and routing number, and like buy Bitcoin directly with it. So River has now added that option. And it's kind of like this mindset of like paying yourself, that like we don't offer any financial advice on the show, but I think it's kind of a safe thing to recommend, which is basically like paying yourself first, right? When you get a paycheck, comes in the mail or comes in your bank account. If you're, if you're in the 1980s, comes in the mail. Basically taking that money and immediately using to pay off a loan or pay off, an interest payment or whatever, right? But having the ability to like have a portion of your paycheck go directly into like River to like as a savings, like to buy Bitcoin, rather than having it like go into your checking account first and then get deposited from your checking account, right? You don't even want to like think about it. You just want it to just go into a different account, not have to worry about it, set it and forget it. So really, really cool that they're now offering this feature. And basically they also give you the option you can set between like 0 to 100% of like how much actually gets converted into Bitcoin, because they also have like a savings account option through River as well. So
yeah,
really cool.
This is awesome. This is like the next best thing aside from actually just getting paid in Bitcoin itself. I find like the more steps you can eliminate, the easier it is to just like acquire and not even realize it. I use an app in Canada. I've also brought it up many times, ShakePay, where you can spend like on a prepaid Visa and there's a roundup feature. So every time you make a card purchase, you're also buying Bitcoin. And I've been able to accumulate a ton of sats that way, which has been so cool. And it's like these little things that continuously add up, and like that is the smartest move that you can make to acquire more Bitcoin. It's just these small little habits or automations that just remove the thought process of like, oh, I need to buy it.
Yeah, that's really the way to go. I mean, you can certainly like dollar cost average and do that, but yeah, also having like other ways to like just little bits here and there to like round up. Or River has this feature also where like it's works as a savings account, but instead of receiving the interest in more dollars, you actually receive the interest in Bitcoin. So that's like another thing that they offer that I like. So all these little ways to like acquire more Bitcoin. It's pretty cool. I sent this to you this morning. I thought this piece was really, really well written.
Super cool.
It's this piece from Jordy Visser, who is kind of like more of like a macro kind of economist. He is on like Pomp's podcast a lot, and he's always like a really good speaker on there. But he had this really interesting post on like why we're seeing this price action on Bitcoin. When meanwhile we're seeing like gold is hitting all-time highs, S&P is hitting all-time highs, like all of these like much more like traditional assets are experiencing a lot of growth. And then meanwhile, Bitcoin is just kind of like stagnant and sitting at these like, $100,000, like 110 like range for like almost this entire year. It feels like it's just been in this range. So I wanted to like pull out like this paragraph because I think it really gets like at the meat of what the point he's trying to make. But basically, we're now in like a post ETF world, right? We had the ETFs that got approved in the US last year. And right now, Bitcoin is sort of operating very similar to when a company IPOs and early investors can finally sell their shares on the open market. And this is quoted from his piece. So he said, when a company goes public and early investors begin to sell their positions, the stock often consolidates, even during broader market rallies. Why? Because there's a specific dynamic at play. Early investors aren't panic selling. They're methodically distributing their positions. They're being careful. They don't want to crater the price. They're patient. They've waited years for this moment, and they can wait a few more months to do it right. Meanwhile, you have new investors that are stepping in, but cautiously. They're not chasing. They're accumulating the dips. They're waiting for the distribution to complete before getting more aggressive. So the result is a sideways grind that kind of drives everyone crazy. The fundamentals are fine. The broader market is rallying, but the stock just kind of sits there. Don't believe me? Go look at Circle or CoreWeave. They had this huge early post surge after their IPOs, but since then there's been a lot of consolidation. And then later on, he said, OG whales haven't been waiting for price. They've been waiting for liquidity, and now they have it through these ETFs. So I thought it was super interesting. I think it makes a ton of sense. And I think he was estimating that we'll probably see another like 6 to at least 6 months more of this is what he was estimating.
Yeah.
Which is like a little bit of a bummer, but it does make sense why. And it was just a really well written piece. So I definitely would recommend.
Yeah, that was a great read. And I don't look at it like they're abandoning ship either, like OG Bitcoiners. It's just like you said, they're finally able to be liquid. A lot of people talk about like you need to spread the Bitcoin around. Like, you can't have like a small subset of people holding all of it. So yeah, and Manib also touched on this. He had a post, I don't know if it was yesterday or earlier this week, just about like Bitcoin maturing. And like this is a sign of Bitcoin maturing. And that ultimately just means like less chaos, less volatility. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of moving closer towards being like a monetary asset. But this was a great read. I like this one.
Yeah, Manib actually, in Manib's post this week, he tagged a few people, he cited a few people, and Jordy was actually one of the people that he cited, I think, from this piece. So it also reminded me of just like the theory that like Udi has been posting a lot about like his 400K Bitcoin theory on like where a lot of old whales are dumping. A lot of old whales like actually don't have a lot of Bitcoin anymore because they've been selling it all. And that's why we've been seeing like this consolidation. And meanwhile, you have this sort of new wave of Bitcoiners that are coming in that have been accumulating. And it's just this shift from like old guard to new guard. And we're kind of in the middle of that right now. So a lot of smart people that are saying similar things about Bitcoin's price. But I think the consensus among like all of them is that like we're in kind of this like weird kind of middle ground with Bitcoin's price right now. But that doesn't mean that like the bull market is over. I think there's still a lot of people that think that Bitcoin is still going to go up from here before we have like, the next cycle or whatever. I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that necessarily. I still feel like the halving is still a very, very big, or has a very, very big impact on like Bitcoin's price. And traditionally we've been in like we're always in these 4-year halving cycles. And that has really, historically, you've seen a big correlation with Bitcoin's price and the halving cycles every 4 years. So I personally think that's going to continue. I think a lot of people are saying that is not, but I don't know. I guess we'll see.
We'll see.
It's just my prediction, I guess.
Okay, this next one, I'm not sure if you've seen any of this. It's about like these land claims that are happening in Canada. To be honest, a lot of Canadians don't even know that this is happening. If you don't, or if you haven't seen like this on the timeline, I do not blame you. But basically, there is this wave of indigenous land claims that's happening. It's like a buildup of legal and historical processes that's been unfolding in the country for quite some time. And it just seems recently it's all kind of coming to a head. It's not necessarily like a political movement, but when Canadian settlers arrived here, a lot of the country's land was actually never formally transferred from the Indigenous nations to the Crown through treaties. So in a lot of Canada, like a lot of the prairies, there were formal written agreements and treaties set up. So land literally changed hands through a legal process. But for British Columbia, parts of Quebec, the Northern Territories, a lot of it was just kind of assumed to be Crown land. And Crown land is our equivalent of public land that you guys would have in the US. And so for decades, a lot of Indigenous nations have challenged this in court, basically pointing to Section 35 of the Constitution Act, which basically recognizes Indigenous rights and international frameworks set by the UN, which Canada has committed to honoring and implementing. But basically, there's been a few landmark cases from Canada's Supreme Court that's basically stating that even without treaties in place, real ownership rights could be given to these Indigenous nations, not just as a symbolic recognition, but like as a legality. So basically what this is saying is that even if it is private land and an Indigenous nation is claiming it, that could be transferred. This property could be transferred to the Indigenous nation. And so obviously, this is creating a ton of uncertainty around private property ownership, who actually owns the land. People who thought they owned the land in an area that's being claimed by a nation is basically being told by the government in courts, like, we're actually not sure if you own it, if they own it. And so it's creating a ton of uncertainty and obviously fear. And a huge result of this is that some banks have started to stop issuing mortgages to some property owners because they're genuinely not sure, if the land is going to be taken away. And so it's like a huge risk that they're facing. So it's really asking this question. A lot of Canadians are realizing for the first time, like, maybe I don't actually own what I thought I owned, and I will bridge it back to Bitcoin. I will find the bridge. But it's like really highlighting that like all of these legal frameworks and like government issued property rights, they can crumble pretty quickly. And so I don't imagine a lot of people are just going to be like forced out of their homes. You do not own this land, get off. Like, I don't imagine that's going to be the transition, but it is like really shining the light on a lot of property right issues happening here. And obviously, I think of Bitcoin and I'm so thankful that like I have the opportunity to buy Bitcoin because it's really the only property that I see that you don't need recognition from a legal framework, from a court, from a government. The only title that you need is your keys to access it on the blockchain. That's the only proof of ownership that you need. So yeah, it's this whole thing that's unfolding. I don't think a resolution is going to happen quickly, but it is something to keep an eye on. And I imagine, I don't think it's going to be a huge Bitcoin onboarding event, but it's definitely like a talking point really around property rights and true ownership.
Yeah, this is super interesting. I'm glad that you brought it up. It kind of reminds me of, there's this thing, I don't know if there's a similar thing in Canada, but there's this thing in the US called eminent domain. Have you heard of that? It's basically like the government has the right to like, I think there maybe is like a purchase associated with it, but like they have the right to like claim private property if they like need it for something. Okay. Like if they need to like build a highway, they can just be like, oh yeah, we're going to put a highway here and your house happens to be here. So we need to take your house. Yeah. Like, yep. Yeah. We do have that too. There's a lot of that that's happened in the US. Like I know just cause I live in California, like, especially like in LA, when they were building the highways in LA, they like bulldoze, a bunch of like poorer communities. Right. And all the rich communities got to keep their houses. And they like literally like, when you look at like the highway maps in LA, you can see how they are sort of like routing around certain communities because those were like the richer communities that like were able to fight against it more. Where meanwhile, other communities just got like wiped out. So it just reminded me of that as well. Like, yeah, even if you like think that you own your house, like, you don't. Exactly. At the end of the day, like there's ways that like it can be taken away from you.
Yep.
But yeah, Bitcoin unseizable, right?
That's it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll obviously continue to watch how this unplays. You know, a lot of people are pretty scared right now, and I think the real estate market is going to suffer quite a bit because it's really like there is no clarity, and the government is kind of like, yep, we're monitoring it, we're in negotiations, but it's really unclear how this will unfold, because if they do follow the legal frameworks and they actually follow like the court proceedings or like the rulings that have come out of the court, it doesn't look good for a lot of private property owners.
Yeah. And I imagine it's a similar thing. Like, you know, people that can afford, you know, the legal fees to fight
Exactly.
it, they're going to be able to
Yep.
do that and potentially, you know, keep it, where like if people don't have money, right, they're screwed basically.
Totally.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, very similar situation.
Well,
I put this tweet out for Zcash. Zcash has just been on this tear. I wrote this this morning that Zcash continues to climb, surpassed $650, and then I checked right before the show and it had already surpassed $700. So it was like crazy run up. And I think it's just like important to highlight, like when you look at the chart, Zcash like historically for years was basically flat or just like kind of like choppy downward. And I posted it kind of in a response to like the price of STX, because like, you know, community has definitely been hurting with the Stacks token. It actually has gone up a little bit today, which I think people are happy about. But I'm just comparing this to, you know, people are finally waking up and realizing that privacy is worth paying for. You know, we're talking about a lot of these like privacy things where it's like, it's important to have privacy, right? And that's why you've seen this big run up with Zcash. But I also just think that, you know, the time is going to come for Bitcoin DeFi. It's only a matter of time. I pulled up this chart, like, subtracting like the past couple of months of Zcash. You can see like their price went from like around like $300 to like $40 or $50, and it was like over a few years period, and then now it's up to like $700. I just think that you know, Bitcoin DeFi is going to have its day again. Yeah, that's what Zcash looked like for a long time. Different story today.
Very different. I'm like always curious as to like what's happening, what is driving this. I mean, you mentioned it, a lot of it is just like narratives come back throughout the cycles, but there's also, you know, a lot of people are talking about how as Bitcoin becomes more institutionalized, you know, people are looking for more like stealth and privacy alternative plays. And like it seems like they've kind of really improved their UI. They have like a new wallet called Zashi, I think. It's like built for Zcash, by Zcash kind of stuff. So it seems like their UI and overall tech has improved a little bit. But, yeah, we'll have to see how this plays out. I put a note in here, like maybe one day our show will be called Good for Zcash.
Maybe. I wouldn't hold your breath.
That's funny.
But yeah, privacy is certainly a primary topic these days. But
yeah.
I guess speaking of privacy, we talked about this last week, following up on our BitKey story. They have implemented chain code delegation, which was their BIP that they came out with, and that is going to be rolling out over the next few weeks. And one use case for this that I don't know why we didn't like connect the dots on this last week was if you have a BitKey, they are holding one of your keys. That's like how their product works. So BitKey can technically see, because they have one of your keys, like your transaction history, and they don't want that, right? They don't want to have that power and that knowledge of their users. So by implementing this, basically they are cutting off their access to see like your transaction history and your balances and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. I don't know why I didn't like think about that more explicitly last week when we talked about it, but wanted to highlight that as makes a lot of sense.
Nice. Yeah, that's definitely good that we touched on that then. All right, should we get to the big news of the week for stocks?
Yeah, a few big
I guess we've
pieces of news.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead. I'll let you take the first one.
Sounds good. So we have the integration between WalletConnect and Stacks. I think a lot of people were pretty excited to hear about this one. For nothing else, if it's just like WalletConnect is a beast. I mean, I looked at some of the numbers of just like how their network operates. They have 350 million wallet to app connections, 50 million users, 70,000 apps and $400 billion flowing through their network every year. So they are obviously a beast. They've served Ethereum and Solana wallets, and they've really acted as the infrastructure layer between dApps and wallets, so making it much easier to integrate wallets and not need to build like native wallets constantly. And then Hex Trust has already signed on to integrate a WalletConnect's SDK, which basically brings stacking, STX, what we all love to do on stacks. It's bringing it to their client base, which is huge. And I think we're just going to have to watch the numbers and let them speak for themselves as to how like big this partnership, or not partnership, but integration really is.
Yeah, basically what this is going to do is it's going to make it easier for other wallets, for other exchanges, for other DEXs to integrate stacks into their offerings. So WalletConnect has just this one SDK that, if you're connecting to like an Ethereum dApp or a Solana dApp, chances are they're using WalletConnect to power those wallet connections on the back end. They serve like literally millions of users through these connections. Having stacks integrated in there is huge. It's just going to make it easier for wallets and dApps, like you said, everybody to integrate stacks into more things. So really, really cool to have this. And yeah, like you said, WalletConnect is just massive. So they're a really great partner for stacks to have.
And then the next big piece of news for the week.
Yeah, Hermetica, they have announced HBTC, which is their Bitcoin in, Bitcoin out offering. Basically, what it does is you deposit sBTC into their HBTC vault, and then that basically gets deployed into yield-bearing strategies on your behalf. And then profits from those yield-bearing strategies are converted back to BTC. So it's Bitcoin in, Bitcoin out. All you have to do is hold the token. So it's still like self-custodial. You're not having to trust anybody to hold your keys. Mm-hmm. And it's combinable with dual staking, which is massive. So in their announcement the other day, they said that you can earn up to 8% APY, and that's combined with the up to 5% APY that you get through dual stacking. So double digit, APYs basically when you combine these two together is pretty crazy. And you actually interviewed their CEO, Jacob, about it.
Yeah.
So these clips have been going out on the handle.
Yeah, it was great. He's so easy to talk to. But one of the cool things, he did show me the dashboard that they're building, and it's super clean, really nicely laid out. And one thing that you can guarantee with him is he's so big on like transparency. That's like a very key value that he talks about a lot. And so on the dashboard, you're really able to track where all of the funds are being deployed, all the actions, withdrawals, and it's all linked to the Block Explorer and Stacks. So you can really like fully see what's happening, which is so important. And they're still working on the portfolio dashboard, basically like where you can go and track your individual earnings. I think they're still kind of working out some kinks there, but it's going to be a really cool product. And yeah, pairing that with dual stacking, like in a self-custodial way that you're earning that much yield is a serious game changer, I think, for a lot of Bitcoiners. And I feel like this could be like our moment to really bring a lot into this ecosystem. So I'm really excited for them to launch this.
Yeah, we also have Bitflow also that's working on their HODL. So I think both of those products are being they can't work yet until like Clarity 4 goes live, which is also happening next week. We'll talk about that next week. But lots of stuff cooking on stacks.
Yeah, it's like a domino effect.
Pretty excited. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be cool. And also with the HBTC launching, like they're going to be leveraging Zest. Like it's cool to see like how they're all interacting with each other. That's what you would want in an ecosystem. So love it.
Absolutely. This news, kind of a bummer. So Samurai Wallet developer Keon Rodriguez, who's one of the 2 devs that was being tried by the courts in New York. Keon was sentenced to 60 months in prison, plus 3 years of post-release supervision and a $250,000 fine. There's this video from Frank Corva. He's a correspondent at Bitcoin Magazine where he talks about it. But just to briefly summarize, so he had pled guilty to unlicensed money transmitter charge. So 60 months is the max amount for that crime, so he received the maximum punishment for it. One bit is the judge did mention that it was important to protect financial privacy, but that Samurai was doing more than that, basically like encouraging criminals to use the service, hence the sentence. So I think it's not quite as black and white as, we're like trying to ban privacy. I guess they were like encouraging criminals to potentially use the service. So it gets a little messy, but still a bit of a bummer, kind of a loss for privacy, and we'll see, I guess, what happens to the other dev. But good video from Frank Corva recapping the ruling, and he's been providing a lot of updates to the story as it's been going on.
Yeah, that is unfortunate.
Last one to end on, more bullish news coming from JP Morgan, surprisingly. They have provided a Bitcoin price prediction, and they say that they see Bitcoin's price reaching about $170,000 within the next 6 to 12 months. They cite deleveraging in perpetual futures is likely behind us. That's, that huge liquidation event that we saw happen a few weeks ago. So they said like kind of the aftermath of that is behind us now. And yeah, 170K within the next 6 to 12 months. So pretty crazy again how quickly JP Morgan has shifted from being banning or firing people for even owning Bitcoin to now giving these bullish price predictions.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, I read an article just because I was like, what the heck is this? But one of their analysts is talking about how you shouldn't watch ETF inflows. You need to watch perpetual futures as the price predictors, because ETFs show what institutions are doing, but perps reveal what real-time traders are up to. And they like show market liquidity and where it's headed.
Interesting stuff. Well, I think that wraps it up for the week. Lots of stuff to be excited about. Next week's show, we're going to be recording on Thursday because two of us are actually headed out to Buenos Aires for DevConnect. So very excited. If you are a builder, we hope to meet you there, and we'll be bringing our recording gear. So we're going to be interviewing folks and trying to do a lot of content, and I'm really excited for it. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's going to be super fun. Stacks is hosting a few events. We have the Hacker House. That's where you for sure will be posted up there at the Hacker House. It's like a week-long thing. There's going to be a lot of workshops and seminars, presentations, just, and obviously some hackathoning. I'm actually going to be speaking at SHFI. I found that out recently. So
Wonderful.
I'll be talking about transparency in DeFi, where the future is headed with that. So that will be pretty fun. And then Stacks is also hosting a couple other events. One is called the Meet and Greet. It's kind of just like a barbecue, hangout, very chill vibes.
Yeah, MEAT, meet.
MEAT, yeah. And then there's the Bitcoin builders. I think this is just, like kind of like a conference networking event for builders, creators, Bitcoiners, investors to all just kind of meet and cook some good things up. So we'll share a lot more of that from Stacks, but yeah, that's why we won't be live next Friday, but next Thursday instead.
Yeah. Go to stacksnacks.com. There's links to those events there. We'll be posting it on the Stacks Twitter account as well. So look out for those links to RSVP for the meet and greet and the Bitcoin Builders event. They're free too. So if you're going to be there, please join. We'd love to see you. But yeah, I think that wraps it up for us. Follow me at Marshall Mixing. Follow Kate at Kate M. Parkman on X. Go subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app. Go to goodforbitcoin.com and you can find all the links there. Find us live streaming on X or on YouTube. It's youtube.com/@goodforbitcoin. And we will see y'all next week.
Awesome. See you guys. Bye.